Good evening, viewers, and welcome back to Prime Live. It is a Motivation Monday. So, Mondays are all about getting you kickstarted for the week and equipping you with the best possible equipment and skills to be able to get you moving forward. Now, our next conversation this evening is going to be with Jason Sandler, who is a remarkable individual who has not only conquered personal adversity but has also become an inspiration to others. He is a certified Master Hypnotist, NLP Practitioner, a life coach, as well as a performance counselor. Now, he has used his expertise to create a unique approach to empowering people through the Jason's Multi Modality. He is also the author of From Stress to Success, the A to Z of stress management. Now, stress management is something that we all need a bit more in our lives. Good evening, Jason, and welcome to INX Prime.
Good evenings. Thank you so much for having me join you.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege for us to be able to have this conversation with you, particularly when it comes to stress management. We know that being South African can come with a lot of environmental stresses. We have work stress, we have the stress of the situation in the country. Sometimes it's load shedding, sometimes it's water issues, whether it be employment. There are many different factors that can impact our levels of stress, and we are definitely very, very stressed as a country. Now, this is something that you specialize in your personal journey. What really led you to become a stress management specialist? What inspired this journey?
Well, here's the truth. My journey started along this line in 2001. In fact, it's coming up at the end of this month as an anniversary of that date, when I was involved in a serious motor vehicle accident. And after spending close to 5 months in hospital and leaving hospital in a wheelchair, being told that I'd probably never walk again, the stress of my whole life turning upside down and changing was debilitating on an emotional level to me. And I lay there alone, bored, nothing to do. My wife was at work and I'm stuck and bedridden. And I was asking myself, surely this can't be it. And I started looking at the way that our mind works, and how there's a beautiful saying that goes, what our mind perceives, we conceive, and how our mind works, and getting myself to change my mindset, my thoughts, etc., and slowly start chiseling away at all of those stumbling blocks and things that were blocking me. And one of the biggest ones was the stress factor. And I realized when that happened how many other people who've had far, far different things happen in my life were also struggling and suffering from high levels of stress. So I started to put a program together based on what worked for me as an individual, and it's been highly successful. And I shifted my whole life to focusing on helping people and empowering people using the power of their own minds.
No, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing your journey and the vulnerability you've just shared with us this evening. I think it's so important for us to hear stories like this so that we know that despite the difficulty that we may experience in our lives at some point or the other, we can actually overcome them with the right tools. And speaking about those tools, you use various different modalities to be able to coach, such as hypnosis, NLP therapy, as well as life coaching as well. What is the benefit of using these different types of modalities and combining them together when you are coaching someone, or when you are approached by clients who have maybe overcome difficult circumstances such as yours, motor vehicle accidents, or any other traumatic experience they might have had?
The easiest way to explain it to you is to say that not everything will hit the target all the time. And you have some people who one modality works better with them. They're more in tune with that modality than another modality. And when you layer them like that, all the different ones, which are all coming from the same perspective, one on top of each other, you create an extremely powerful therapeutic tool to be able to use. And the easiest example I can give you on that is somebody came to me once and they said to me, I really need help with an issue I have in my life, and I've tried everything already, but I haven't tried hypnotherapy. Can you help me? And I said, yes. And I did not explain to them that while using hypnosis, I was incorporating coaching, counseling, and NLP techniques within the hypnosis. And because you're layering it like that, it creates this multimodality approach that tends to work on all different levels within a person. And the interesting thing is, often people don't realize it's working until it's worked. They look back on it and they go, oh my, that actually has made a positive difference in my life, because it works on a level that is on the subconscious of your mind. So it's a slow, gentle process to achieving your goals. And unless you choose to track it, it is so easy for us to forget where we were and where we've arrived at. And when you use the multimodality approach, it A, speeds up the process, and certain things gel with some people and not with others. I've had people who've come to me and said to me that they don't agree with the whole concept, probably because of a misunderstanding of what it is around hypnotherapy. And that's okay, because I'm still able to help them using one of the other modalities that I offer.
That's a very interesting approach, and I respect it for the fact that each individual is different, and one type of modality may not relate or work for one individual. And like you said, with trying different modalities together, you can find what works best for that individual. I think with a lot of different strategies, it can actually cater better to different types of individuals, what they can relate to, and how they can respond better to the treatment or the coaching that they are being received. It's not exactly a one size fits all for every single person. So that is a very interesting approach. Stress management is something that is so important for us to learn, and it's so important for us to be able to learn from a very young age. It will definitely help a lot with an individual's success and growth in life. And stress can have detrimental effects on individuals. Now, what I wanted to ask you are, what are some of the strategies and the techniques that you would suggest to our viewers this evening when it comes to stress management, and how can they better manage their stress?
Great question. But before I answer your question, I want people to realize that there is no such thing as stress elimination. We live in a world where stress is there, and management is the key word over there. We learn to manage it. We don't eliminate it from our lives. And the first thing that we got to do is, I always start with my clients by saying, all of the things about stress are extremely, as you've already said, detrimental in our lives, both emotionally, physically, on our internal organs, everything. For example, stress is one of the biggest factors to heart disease outside of our dietary eating habits, etc., etc. But what I want to say is, I'll always start by teaching them an acronym, and the acronym is AHA. And I do it like that on purpose, AHA, because each of those three letters represents a different word. Just like Jabu did with connect, AHA is very powerful and so easy to recall and remember. So the first A stands for acknowledge. There's a beautiful saying that says you can't fix or change anything if you don't first acknowledge that it is there. So acknowledge. What you've got to do is you've got to acknowledge that you have this stress, that you have these things called stressors. And a stressor is something that triggers the stress in you. And we've got to acknowledge them, because we don't acknowledge them first, we cannot deal and cope with them. Then we move on to the H. And the H stands for hesitate. Hesitate. Just pause. Too many people, they're running all the time, and they jump and they grab the first thing. They do everything on impulse and they don't think it through first. So pause, just hesitate and ask yourself the questions. What exactly is causing me to feel this way? And very often, most times in fact, we can find a way of understanding what it actually is. I know this is going to sound like a silly example, but it is so true. In a room full of people, ask people a question. Are you afraid of flying? Does getting in an airplane cause you high levels of stress and anxiety? Or are you afraid of spiders? Seeing a spider in your home on the wall, does it create anxiety and stress for you? And you see, most people who don't like flying or don't like spiders will say, yes, highly stressful. That is a stressor for me. But here's the truth. There is nobody in the entire world who is afraid of flying. And this comes out, and you understand this when you do that H, the hesitate. What we're actually afraid of is that the plane is going to stop flying. We're not afraid of a spider. We're afraid of the perceived thoughts of what that spider might do or what that spider represents to us, not the actual spider. And when we hesitate and we pause and we think about it, we realize this, and already our anxiety and our stress levels can start to dissipate because of that. And when we understand what it is that is actually causing what we have acknowledged of the anxiety and the stress, we then move to the third letter, to the second A, which is action. We then know what actions exactly to take. Now, you mentioned my book earlier on, and it's the A to Z of stress management. The way that that book has been written is every letter of the alphabet is a chapter, and every letter stands for a different something that you can do to help you with your stress management. But the one that I embrace and love the most and always teach all of my clients who come to me is the B. And the B stands for breathing. You see, far too many of us don't breathe properly. We do what we call shallow breathing. We're just breathing in and breathing out and breathing in and breathing out. There are really only two people in the world who breathe properly. And I know it's going to sound weird for me to say this to you, but the one is smokers. And you might think, a smoker breathes properly? Well, here's the thing, and I'll explain to you why they breathe properly. And the other, by the way, is people who do meditation. There's actually a third one as well, and it's people who've been to somebody like me before. But here's the truth. The proper way to breathe is to take a long, slow inhalation, filling our lungs nicely. Not a quick, deep breath like this, but rather a slow, deep one, taking at least 4 seconds of inhaling. And then holding our breath for a moment or two or three, and then slowly exhaling. So if I tell you smokers, think about it now. Every smoker, that's how they smoke their cigarette, is it not? So although they're taking all of the chemicals and all of the bad stuff from a cigarette into their body at the same time, they're breathing properly. And just on a side note quickly there, so many smokers will tell you, oh, when I'm feeling stressed, a cigarette calms me down. The truth of the matter is the cigarette is not calming them down. It's because of the proper breathing they're doing while smoking the cigarette that they're starting to feel calm. Because when we breathe that way, our body produces, creates, and releases into our system endorphins. And endorphins are natural relaxants. And they help us to relax, just like other chemicals that we produce in our body to make us go into other modes and other things like that. Proper breathing, deep, slow, methodical breathing releases these endorphins into our system. So I always tell people, start with that. There's another 26 different examples I can give to them, and we can slowly work through and find, again, going back to why do I do a multi-modality, which ones work best for them. But I always like to start with that one. And anybody who's watching and listening to me right now, do yourself a favor. while sitting there, watching, listening, just take a moment to breathe properly. And it isn't one breath. It should be a minimum and a cycle of doing that anywhere between a half a dozen and a dozen times, and you will start to feel more relaxed. And as you feel more relaxed, your stress levels start to dissipate, almost as if it feels like it's melting away. And as that happens, you start getting better clarity onto why you were feeling that stress in the first place. It doesn't take the stress away. It teaches you how to manage that stress.
Definitely. The power of breath is something that is so underestimated and underused in so many different areas of our lives. And I can imagine how effective the power of breath would be, just teaching it to children in schools to better cope with life stresses, and how much it would contribute positively towards your development and your success as an individual. And like you said, stress is something we're constantly going to have to live with. So the best way we can live with it is to learn to manage it in the best way possible. We thank you so much for joining us this evening, and for that lesson in stress management. I'm definitely going to give the AHA strategy a chance and a try, because stress management is something I struggle with, and it's something that a lot of people in general struggle with as well. And you've made it something that is easy and effective, and something that we can actually incorporate easily into our day-to-day lives. And I guess with most things, with practice, you definitely get better at that. We thank you so much for joining us this evening, for sharing your insight with us, and for teaching us how to better manage our stress.
An absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for having me on and giving me the time to share something that I know can help every single one of your viewers.
Thank you for sharing, Jason. Viewers at home, that was Jason, who is not just a life coach, but also specializes in stress management. Now, I hope you were staying tuned, and I hope you were listening to his AHA strategy and how you can incorporate his AHA strategy, as well as short and fast breathing techniques, to be able to manage your stressful situations or stress in your life a bit better. So definitely head over and have a look at his book if you would like some more information about how to better manage your stress. But those little tips and tricks that he did share are incredibly useful and easy and simple to incorporate. As he said, the lasting note that I remember from our conversation that I will hold dear to me is that stress is something that we are constantly going to have to live with. We'll never be able to eliminate it, but we can, and we do have the power on how we manage it. But on that note, it is time for us to take an ad break, and we'll come right back.